Hey there, TM people. We're so glad that you're joining us today for this incredible webinar on leading through the lens. It's an exciting day here in the United States. If you're seeing this at a later time, you might not realize, but it's election day. And if you haven't voted, um, maybe you believe in the great Jay Leno's quote, if God wanted us to vote, he would have given us better candidates. I don't know whether that's true or not, but it's great that you're here with us. Little diversion on election day. Hey, I'm going to introduce our incredible speaker here in just a minute, but I do want to point out a few announcements we have from TM. We're doing these webinars every Tuesday at 1 p.m. And next week, 1 o'clock on Tuesday, I believe that's the 10th, we'll have a webinar on church life cycles with Dr. Bob Orr. That'll be a good time to just think about where is your church on the life cycle. In 2 weeks, what a great webinar we have at the same time, live and on Zoom. We have Tom Mercer and Greg Gunderson, two giant church pastors who are just going to be talking about stuff. Where do we go from here? So that's some fun stuff that's coming up. I want to let you know about a couple other things that are happening with TM. I'm JD Pearring. I'm the lead for church planting. We have some church planting events coming up tomorrow at 1 o'clock. If you need an after-election pick-me-up, we're doing a Zoom leadership connection. We have a couple of presenters. Tim Combs, the newest church planting pastor for TM. He's planting in Whittier. He'll be with us. And also Gary Chupik, who planted in the Pacific Northwest and now works for Russell Wilson's group in coaching leaders and pastors. So that's tomorrow. We have some live events coming up. We have a live connection event in Denver on Thursday, one in Phoenix on Friday, November 20th. So we're starting to come back live. And I just want to encourage you, if you're looking at your next step in ministry and not sure what that is, next Tuesday and Wednesday, the 10th and 11th, down in San Diego at Skyline Church, we're hosting a discovery center, which is 2 days of trying to figure out what your next step is. If you're looking at church planting, it's a great place to look at whether that's a good fit for you. But we also have a ministry tune-up track for those of you who might be saying, hey, I'm just looking for a change. This COVID stuff has kind of messed me up. I'm not sure where I fit. Let us know about that. You can put it in the chat here on the Zoom, or you can send an email to the TM church offices, and we'll discuss that with you. So we're glad that you're here. I want to introduce our speaker today, Joel Weldon. Joel and I go back pretty far. When my wife and I moved back to California from Colorado almost 30 years ago, we were starting a church in the Bay Area, and the first couple who joined our launch team were huge Joel Weldon fans. They had all of your stuff. And we did almost entirely Joe Weldon songs for our first year there. We did Only You, we did Every Minute, God Give Us America. That's a good song for today. And then when we planted here in the Sacramento area, Joel came and led worship for our church a number of times. And in fact, Joel, you may not know this, but you're still a legend in our house because one of your ballads, I think you're talking about being in the front of a truck with a guy and he reached for a cup of coffee. And the way you say coffee, my wife still says coffee that way. Do you want a cup of coffee?
Yeah, cup of coffee.
Joel is more than a worship leader. He's in a band at Hume Lake for many years, is a SAG actor. He does voiceovers for lots of different companies. If you drive a Ford truck, you probably do that because Joel is the national voice for Ford trucks. And he did a short teaching for us in a connection Zoom a few weeks ago on how to lead through the lens. It was fantastic. Kept using me as an example of what not to do. So let's see what happens. So this is such a pertinent topic. I'm going to mute myself, and I'm just going to turn it over to the legendary Joel Weldon.
Wow. All right, JD, I'm honored, you guys, and everybody at TM. Man, I'm really honored to be with you today. This has been a real, when we had our connection thing was a month ago or so, it was just so good to connect again with JD and several others. And man, JD, I didn't know the stories. That's crazy. I'm so sorry you had to listen to all those Joel Weldon songs over and over and over. So it was it was crazy times. But I've been doing ministry for so many years, and I absolutely loved all those years doing, worship ministry at Hume Lake and up and down the coast. And then, it spread around the country and doing a ton of worship and really low. Those were precious years to me, really great times. And they were years when I got to know not only JD, you, but many, many others in the TM family back before it was even called the TM family. And so I really I counted a privilege to be with you guys. But can you say the word pivot? I mean, I think about the election today, and what a weird year, man. This has been, we're heading to the end of the strangest year I can remember on record. And I have so many different friends in ministry, so many friends that are doing, tons of stuff uh, in itinerant ministry, and everything is just kind of folded into home. Everything's about just being at home now. And for me, it's been a really strange thing watching all of my friends, and me included. We used to fly, out and do stuff a couple times a month. Many pastors would be guest speakers at events, and just even at their own churches with full houses of people in person. And man, all of a sudden we're just not doing that anymore. And people are going, what do we do? What do we do? And pastors and leaders are going, what do we do? What do we do? So, I've been doing this for a long time. During the years of ministry, doing music, I began doing voiceovers up in the Northwest where we lived, and it started small. I picked up little local clients and really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun just using your voice and getting a couple $100 to put a voice on a Toyota commercial for a local dealer. And then one thing after another happened. Pretty soon it grows. Pretty soon, I have an agent in Florida who starts getting me work. And anyway, leading to where we are now, where I'm really a full-time voice actor is what I do. And I love doing ministry. I still do ministry, tons of ministry. That's where my heart is at. But I really make a living, for the most part, doing voices. So I do clients, you might remember a company called Rosetta Stone, the fastest way to learn a language, guaranteed. So I was the voice for Rosetta Stone for about 12, almost 13 years in the English speaking world doing radio. And I would do it out of my home, because I'm a musician. I had microphones, I had all the stuff. And then one thing leads to another. Pretty soon I thought, I'm in Southern Cal. I'm going to start getting some training. So about, 11, 12 years ago, I started getting training in Hollywood from different voice acting teachers. And I liked it because you didn't have to see your face. It's just your voice. Nobody knows your name. You're just a faceless voice on a commercial selling a product, and I thought this is really fun. And it was great to be able to do that. And, it didn't take a ton of time. And I got better and better at what I was doing. Then I added another agency, and now my voice is sold out of an agency in Beverly Hills called DPN Talent, and out of DDO out of New York City. So between the East Coast and the West Coast, I do auditions constantly, and I do campaigns for Ford. I did Toyota for a long time. I do a lot for NHL, National Hockey Network, or excuse me, National Hockey League, NASCAR. But all that all that to say, it's amazing how God takes you in different paths you don't expect. And, I look back at scripture, and some of the main characters in scripture had paths they never could have planned. Most of them. Think about it. They never could have planned those things. Suddenly, boom, here comes a left turn, and they end up taking that turn. It leads to another door, and they go through that, and another chapter of life, another challenge. That's what scripture's all about. Change is constant, right? So for you and I, this whole season, I know has stretched so many people, and my heart goes out to you. My hat comes off if I had one to you. You guys, you are the faithful ones. You're the servants of the Lord doing his work. And if you could take away even one or two tips from this day, I will consider that a success, right? So I've been doing on-camera stuff now as an actor for quite a while. It kind of, one thing leads to another again. So I do this stuff for Charles Stanley out of Atlanta. His last campaign did that on-camera stuff. That was a whole different experience too. But when it comes to the lens, now we're all challenged. How do we face this whole new scenario? And I'm here to tell you that as a voice actor, when people use my voice to convince people to buy a product, or they use my voice to convince people to vote for a presidential candidate, or you use your voice to persuade someone about something. Maybe it's an idea, or maybe it's how to be challenged to obey God's word in the area of giving, right? That's something we all do. Just obedience to the Lord. How do you challenge them to do that? That's what you do every week. So from my perspective, as a communication specialist, you might say, it's a real different, unique look at how to communicate. You're not going to learn this stuff in seminary. And so the stuff I'm even going to show you today, it's common sense stuff, right? But it's stuff that many people fail to apply, especially when it comes to you leading on camera week after week after week. So let's start with this. I got a couple little slides here. I'm just going to put them up here. I'm going to give you 5 essentials today that I think are going to be they'll be helpful for you, right? When it comes to leading through the lens. Now, when you're talking about the lens, right, there are a couple unique properties about it. And I think innately you understand them, you know them, but let me point them out. When you're doing a message in front of a group of people at church, right, you are standing before a whole bunch of individuals, but they're all there collectively as a group, and you're addressing them as a group. I mean, that's how we preach. That's how we communicate. If I'm leading worship or I'm preaching, I am communicating to the whole room all at once. And everyone understands the dynamic. They're all sitting out there. They understand they're a group of people. They are taking you in as a group. And your challenge, of course, is how do you connect with each individual in the room? Because that's the goal. You want each person, each child of God out there to hear what you have to say that you've prepared, and you want them to assimilate that, let it sink deep, and let it be a change agent in their life. Let God use that so they walk out of the door and you connected with them. They felt like JD, for example, had something that really connected it. God used him in that way. So that's my prayer for each of you. And I'm sure you pray that every week. But now add a camera in the mix, okay? Especially if you only have a camera, right? You don't have a group at all, which is how most of us went through this. Suddenly we're reinventing church, only having a camera. Now, the dynamic that I want to talk about really obviously, right, is that when you look in the lens, you're looking at one person. One person. You're not looking at a group of people. And this is really key. You're looking at one person, and that has to be addressed from you as if you're speaking to one person. You're not just casting this out there to the room, because the lens has a pair of eyes in it. It's one pair of eyes at a time. And so when you deliver your message, here you are looking into a person's eyes. And that's really our main point. Point number 1, meet with one person. I'm going to give you 5, right? So this is the first one. When you're a voice actor, one of the first things you need to learn is, and this then spreads out to all areas of communication, one of the first things you have to learn is that I am speaking to one person at a time. And even though the microphone's here, I know that my voice is going to be broadcast all over the world in a commercial sense, and it's going to be taped and replayed. I'm still speaking with one person. And especially when it comes to voice work, that needs to come across as if I'm a trusted friend, or I'm a character, if I'm doing some sort of animation thing. They need to be able to connect with me as if they're the only person in the room. Because really at any one time, they might be watching you on a cell phone, right? And it's just you and that one person. Except it happens hundreds and thousands of times. But it's you and them. So your whole demeanor, your whole approach needs to be, I am communicating with one person. Now, when you go through the training of voice acting, you're literally taught to act, right? You're taught to act, and acting isn't just like, I pretend I'm someone. To truly act, what you're doing is you're being yourself, every part of yourself. you are being, but you're bringing yourself to different circumstances that are imaginary. So when you're taught to do that as a voice actor, you're taught to connect with people one-on-one in a very honest, very authentic sense. And authenticity is a huge buzzword over the last several years, you know. It's the reason you don't hear movie trailer voices very much. Think about it. When's the last time you heard a movie trailer? It's like, in a world. You don't hear those guys anymore. For the main reason is that they just want to let the natural dialogue of the movie sell the movie, along with graphics and sound effects. So you rarely hear movie trailer voices. You know, I did a few way back when, and but they just don't hire them anymore. Everything's about authenticity. Think about YouTube. YouTube is about authenticity. Why does the younger generation connect with YouTube? Because they're just being themselves on camera. Hey guys, you know, that's the two words in the vocabulary you got to nail is, hey guys, hey guys. If you don't get those two words right, you're gonna tank it, man. It's not gonna work. But they want the authentic self, right? So it's you and one person delivering your message. All right. So in light of that, there's a few things that I want to bring to your attention today. When you're planning your talk and you're preparing your mindset, this is really a mindset game. Okay. You've prepared your message. Now you need to specifically choose one person. And I mean, not just like pretend it's one person. It's not a stranger. It's not some random individual that just came in the back church doors, although you might have some of those on the camera. Speak with someone that's a friend of yours and name them. Who's your friend? Who did you have coffee with last week? And not just because it was ministry, but because it's a friend of yours. How would you communicate to them? You know, right now I'm pretending that you're my friend, Jeff Eitzen. Jeff is a good friend, pastor up in the Bay Area, been doing ministry for years. And Jeff and I talk all the time. So I'm imagining that you're Jeff and I am delivering my message, because Jeff is wondering, how do I do better on camera? So I'm speaking with Jeff right now as if he's one person on camera, right? And it helps me to connect because I'm natural with Jeff. Jeff knows me inside and out. And I don't have any pretense with Jeff. You know, if I drop a marginal, cuss word now and then, he understands. He's that kind of guy, right? So Jeff and I have a good time, and I'm pretending Jeff is right in the middle of the lens. Now, if it's a phone like this is your lens. That's where Jeff's eyes are. They're right there. And if that's what you have, right, you're going to meet with your friend, and you're going to pretend that you're sitting there together. You're imagining that you're sitting there together. How would I converse with Jeff? Would I be yelling at him from the platform? And, am I like, hey, Jeff, how's it going? No, because I'm sitting there and his eyes are literally, that lens is 2-3 feet away. It's as if I am sitting across the table in Starbucks and I'm talking to Jeff, right? And he sees my eyes, he sees my face, he hears my voice. That's Jeff. Okay, we got a question here. Doug, how are you, Doug? Oh my goodness. See, Doug's one of those guys. Doug, great to see you, man. So what advice do you have for the pastor who is live streaming? There are people in the room, but maybe more people watching on camera. Who does he talk to? Oh, this is good. Let me finish my thought and then I'm going to answer that question because it's very pertinent, Doug. So you're speaking with Jeff right now, right? When I'm having this conversation with him, it's like, hey man, my eyes will go over here and I don't have to keep his eyes all the time, although it should be there a good 60 to 70% of the time. I might go to my notes a little bit. I might look at my cup of coffee, for example, if I'm imagining I'm having a cup of coffee with him. And then I'm telling him a story, right? And my hands are flailing, and because he's my friend, and I do that with my friends. So I encourage you, do that with your friend. Make it interesting. You're on camera with your friend. Okay, so let me answer that question that Doug just asked. Streaming has been a real challenge for so many churches because all of us are used to doing something the same way. Because why? It's worked. It's worked for a long time. And if you were taught anything about, connecting with a room, you were taught to connect with eyes in the room. Now, a lot of people, they would rather just kind of look over and they don't want to meet any eyes. I say, wrong answer. You need to meet specific eyes in the room. If you don't, people sense that you're not connecting with anyone. Okay. So the thing is, here's Doug asking this question. This is for all of you. This should be one of your main points of contact right here. Okay. And if people online, this is a qualifier. If people online recognize that you are in a room with other people, in other words, you have acknowledged the fact that there are others in the room. Now they realize they're in a group, but it doesn't change the fact that you meet their eyes often. So here is Jimmy in the back. Jimmy's on your board. You meet Jimmy's eyes because he knows you, you know him, right? So he's sitting in the back part of the room there. And then you come back to your friend Jeff in the eyes right here. And then, of course, your wife over here, Debbie, for me, and Debbie's over there. So I meet her eyes, right? Now, here's the weird thing about this. And this is proven over and over. When you and I meet eyes, okay? And even though no one else, I'm not meeting everyone else's eyes, everyone else that is watching me can sense that I am speaking with one person. They know what it's like to have eye contact with someone, and my face literally will show it in real life. Okay. And it's all about the nuances of communication. This is very real. When I'm having a conversation with somebody, for example, and I'm looking them in the eye, right? Everyone else knows that I'm connecting with someone. If I'm just casting my voice out to the room because I'm throwing a presentation out there and I hope it lands somewhere because I want you all to hear it, but I'm not making eye contact, this is what happens. Your face doesn't show it. And because your face doesn't show it, your voice does not show it. It's trippy, right? So Doug, the answer to that question is you treat them like another set of eyes, but it's deliberate. So go back there often. Pretend that those people are really one of your main audiences. And at the other end of that lens are going to be one person and another one person, another one person, one person. So treat them as individuals, give them the time they're due. I would say even 50% of the time, if you're in the room, you can easily move over here, looking at your notes. You look at someone, you deliver a point. Now you come back to the lens and then you deliver the point over there. And then you move over to the left. I like to divide the room into thirds, unless it's a really, really wide stage. Then I would go into fifths. And you have to deliberately move from one, you know, area to the next, addressing each of them back and forth. You can move from here and then back, but your eye contact is huge. You learn that when you're doing performing for concerts, ministry. I was taught that years ago and it works. And if you don't know that, I would encourage you, get out from the pulpit and address the room section by section, meeting one pair of eyes at a time. Okay. So anyway, that needs to go through the lens. That is very important. So you're meeting with one person. Let's go on to number 2, just to make sure we can cover everything we need to cover in this hour. Lead with your sound. Okay. Now on camera, you probably noticed that I've got a setup in here. This is not what I use for voice work. Back there in the red room, I live life in a padded room. Okay. It's right there. When I'm in the red room, that's when everything happens. Out here is the studio area. You can't see it, but there's speakers and everything. So this is a little more of an elaborate setup, but this is where I do my training if I'm teaching voice acting or I'm having conferences with you guys. So I have a decent setup here and I'm using a Canon camera, but right now the audio is what we're talking about. So the audio, if it's really clean and nice, right? Take the steps to make it better. If you're just using your iPhone, for example, the things I'm talking about, when we talk about communicating with your voice, if you're just using your iPhone, right, your iPhone is fine. It's great for a camera, right? It's right here. Here's your camera, right? And it's the same thing. The iPhone lens on this iPhone 11 is remarkably great. So I treat it the same way. If that's what I have, I'm going to use that lens. Now, the audio, however, on an iPhone is not so great, right? The audio on an iPhone is going to feel echoey like the room. And the reason I encourage you to buy just a cheap Amazon, you don't have to have a mic like this. This is a Shure SM7. This is a really great mic, but you need a bunch of other gear to really run it well. But you know what? Have a little lapel mic if you have an iPhone. A little lapel mic on Amazon, they're $30 and they're remarkably good. They sound great. You can get them hardwired with like a 30-foot cord. And if you don't move around too much, it just makes a huge difference in how you can use your voice instead of, preaching loud like this. And I'm having to preach to my audience because they're, 8 feet away. Suddenly with that microphone, it brings my voice way closer. And psychologically, what happens is suddenly, again, I'm speaking, connecting with one person. And the difference is huge. If I had just an iPhone and I'm out here like this, I'm talking because, I'm speaking fairly loudly because I need the microphone to hear me. So what happens when I want to get more intimate, and we'll talk about that in a minute, when I want to get more intimate and bring the voice down, it doesn't convey as well because this microphone doesn't work as well. Suddenly it's like you're leaning in trying to understand. So invest 30, $50, if you want to go into it, maybe your church has a better sound rig and you have a tech person. If you're not techie, you have a tech person that can help you set that up, then just do it the same way all the time. Have a better audio source. Sometimes there's little cameras that have a better, more of a shotgun mic on top. Those are better. They're better. If you have a headset mic, of course, that's the same as a lapel, and the quality of the sound is really good. I'm a voice guy, and if my voice does not sound good, even when I'm doing ministry, then I'm not getting the full power of my voice. I can't use it to its fullness, and neither can you, right? Okay, so let's lead with your sound. Just invest in this in a microphone. The other thing is not just the microphone that's picking you up, but the sound in the room. Okay, so for example, my studio it's a large bedroom that's been converted into a studio. So I have a custom built booth in here. I've got padding all over the walls. Um, the one thing that you need to be concerned with is hard sheetrock. If you have hard sheetrock in the room that you're presenting, it's going to sound echoey, it's going to sound loud, and it sounds very unprofessional. If you want it to sound better, then you need to consider which room you're going to be in, right? If it's a room that has a lot of rough, padded, uneven surfaces, for example, even your library, if you have a bookcase full of books behind you, that is a really good, it's a good diffuser of sound. So it's not like, if I could take a rubber ball and on the sheetrock, this is how sound works. If I could take a rubber ball, like a racquetball, and I could throw it against the wall and it would bounce off like a pool ball, bam, it would just bounce around the room. If it was a super ball, then I need to be concerned with that surface. For example, if I threw it at a bookcase, chances are the ball would just kind of go boom, boom, boom. It'd hit a couple books. And the same with sound. It's not going to reflect off of it. And your sound's going to be way more contained. It's going to feel way tighter and way more personal. Okay, so that's really, really important. So the two things you have to be concerned with, the microphone and then the actual acoustic space, right? There's a lot of stuff on YouTube. There's a lot of stuff on the Empower Your Platform website if you want to go there for more information, okay? So now let's take number 3 then. Obviously, we're talking about sound. Now let's talk about your picture. The number one thing about your picture needs to be your face, okay? And I've touched on it earlier, but your face conveys a ton of information. Your face delivering the words, right? In the video world that we live in, the YouTube world, the on streaming world, your face is, I would say, somebody would dispute this, I would say is almost as important as the sound of your voice, okay? Because the face that you have also delivers emotion. It delivers honesty. It delivers authenticity. Your face is a really huge thing. So don't take it for granted. Lead with your picture. Your picture needs to be very clearly your face discernible. I shouldn't have to look for you in the shadows to see what's going on with your face. Now, for example, if you set the camera and you have a bright window behind you, wrong answer. It's not going to work well, right? You've got to be able to to see the face and not be distracted by what's in the background. And the other thing too, I would say is your the other thing is, if your face is washed out, it's going to look like pasty white and so I just give, right now I've got a little ring light and I've got natural light in the room, but my face feels okay to me, even though it's old and it's all that stuff, but it looks okay. You can see the little reflections if I raise my eyebrows, or I scrunch up my face. You can see that as part of the message delivery, right? So just have a little ring light. It doesn't take much. Just take a little floor lamp, put it in front of you. It's fine. If you're in a church situation, you have a room set up, well, then, be concerned with the lighting. Make sure it looks good. Make sure that your face is lit up, and don't be too far back, right? Because if you're far back and you've got your podium here, and this is really common. I see this on a lot of streams, and I wish people would understand that it's important to change this habit. It's time to change, pivot away from some of that stuff because you're on camera sitting with a friend. If I'm back here and I have a lectern in front of me, well, suddenly, yeah, you can see my arms moving, but I'm not really connecting with you. I'm not sitting across from a table having a conversation with my friend. And suddenly, this is what happens. People check out. Suddenly it's like, hey, watched it for 5 minutes. Yeah, it's okay. And then boom, they're out. If you don't have a second camera or a 3 camera shoot, and you only have one camera, then you should be framing it so that you get pretty much, here's your face, here's your upper body, and you should be able to see from kind of, bottom of your rib cage up, because most of your arm, your arm flailing is going to go like this, right? And so when your arms are flailing, that's part of your communication too. And I encourage you, use your arms. It's fine. I always tell people, to be a better communicator, when you use your arms, you sound different. You sound different. If I'm doing a voiceover in here, I'm not just reading. I'm all in. I'm all in, and I'm moving around and going, oh, I wish you could understand this. And suddenly it comes out different than if I just stood there. I wish you could understand this. It's a whole different thing. So it should be back far enough where they can see your arms if you're using it, but they clearly see your face. And that should be the bulk of your shot, right? When you're on camera, especially when you're preaching. But this goes for everything. If you're having a meeting with people, you're doing a Zoom call, be concerned with how your video looks. It's all a presentation of who you are, especially if you're a leader. If you're in a position of leadership, you should be putting in the little nuanced tips and tricks to make your picture consistently look good. Okay, you can also use a phone, right? We're talking about it's amazing power. Now I have a Canon camera. There's all sorts of other cameras you can use that work with your interface. You just have to use the software, and you might need some tech help to get you set up. But here's the other thing too. Make sure your lens is at eye level. Again, they're tiny little details. But if I'm having a friend conversation with my friend Jeff, I'm sitting there and I'm conversing with him eye to eye. We're on the same level. The bad part about a laptop is that, yeah, it's got the little camera in it, right? So here's the laptop. It's got your little camera right here. But typically, if you got it on your lap, what are you doing? You're looking down like this, and then you get the really weird, like, hey, man, how's it going? I got the double chin world. Or maybe I'm, picking the wrong chair and I'm sitting in my recliner rocker. Hey, how's everybody doing? It doesn't fly, man, especially guys like me, Swedish double chin. It's just bad. The older you get, so you got to do what you can to eliminate that. So basically, if you sit in a spot where you sit upright, they see your face, and you're able to move your hands, and you're engaged with your friend. Okay. Really, really important. Now, here's the next one. Let's go to number 3. Any other questions, you guys just ask away if you need to. Lead with your presence. Number 4, lead with your presence. Number 1, and this is a big one. There's a couple of big ones in here. Lead with your presence. Your presence speaks volumes. How you present yourself, your body, as you walk into the shot, if you're going to be walking into the shot, but even on a platform in a room, how you present yourself. There should be a presence about you that you're comfortable with who you are. You're on a mission to deliver something important, right? You have the authority to deliver that. And again, these are mindset things where you say, Lord, put me in the mindset that I am your messenger today. And it's important that people listen to what I have to say. My biggest concern is not, do they like me or not? Lord, I don't want that. And that's a big pitfall for all of us. We all want to be liked to the point of, did I do well? Did they like me? You know what? That is going to mess you up every time. So your mindset needs to be, every pair of eyes that I meet out there, Jeff, my friend, Jimmy over here, my wife, Debbie, other friends, I need to be consciously thinking, Lord, help me to love them. They need to hear what I have to say today. Help me to love that person on the lens. They need to hear what I have to say. Help me to love my wife even more because she needs to hear what I have to say. Debbie's going to listen back to this and go, well, what do you mean by that? Very important, though, that you do that. It's your mindset, your presence. Now, find your friendly. Everybody has a natural face they go to. And when you're at ease, especially in Zoom calls, you see it all the time. It's just you typically let your face go because you're not engaged as if you're sitting speaking with someone. You just typically, you're going to go, and what happens? Your face falls, the muscles in your face aren't engaged like they would be in conversation. And suddenly you're just sitting there taking it in and you got this slouchy face. And even if you're young, it still shows slouchy face. But if you're old, it's even worse, man. Slouchy face times 10. Okay. So you need to be concerned with how your face looks. And when I say find your friendly, just find a pleasant, friendly face that you default to, because that will speak volumes about just the fact that you're approachable. Just the fact that, I mean, come on, universal smile, right? It doesn't even, it goes beyond language. A smile is huge. If you just have a pleasant, caring face, right? So for me, it's just, I don't want to be pretentious because that's not the point. I'm Joel, who's engaged. He's actively listening, even though he's not saying anything. But that's my friendly face. I'm approachable. I want you to, even if you want to, just record yourself for a while, at ease. Look at your Zoom calls, record a Zoom call, look back on it and go, wow, I need some help. I'm really excited about what I'm talking about, right? So you have to just find your friendly. And that's your whole countenance. I care about the people I'm addressing. That's your friendly. Now, the RBF, in case you haven't heard the RBF, I'm going to lean into this one. It's called resting. And then the last word is face. And the middle word is bad mood. Resting, bad mood face. Okay, RBF. I worked around that. RBF, you guys, be aware of it, because that resting face could be really dangerous and nobody wants to approach someone who has the RBF face. And sometimes we naturally look that way. When you hear about he wears his feelings on his sleeve, it's really not that. He wears his feelings on his face. That's what we all do. So be concerned with how your face looks, right? Now, any questions on that? You might totally disagree with me and all this stuff, but this is really practical, good stuff that you need to apply, because I'm not preaching every week, but this stuff for me really, really has a huge bearing on how effective I am, both in the booth and on camera. Okay. Now, so the RBF, we talked about that. Now here's the other one, superpower your voice. And this is where the nuance of voice becomes, this is the part that excites me, right? Because through all the training I've had, I put together a program, and it's called the True You Method. Now, the True You Method means I want to make your voice the best it can be. And I'm going to share 4 very simple, they're just techniques that you use for dynamics of your voice, right? You should use these 4 every time you preach, okay? They're all 4 C's. I'm good at the whole alliteration thing. Come on, man. 4 C's. C number 1, this is your voice that is confidential, okay? Now, you're not going to use these in this sequence, but your confidential voice is the first C. And confidential means it's as if no one else is listening to my conversation. It's just me and it's Jeff. That's it. Okay. And I'm telling Jeff something that he needs to hear that's very important. And again, I'm Joel doing this, but for you, it's going to look different. But put yourself in that situation where you're having a very confidential conversation with someone. How does that look for you? This is about making you the best you can be. So when you realize what that tone of voice is for you, you should use that in your preaching. Your audio is good. Your video is good. Now, use the voice that starts to convey the emotion, pull people in. So the number 1 is confidential. C number 1, confidential. C number 2 is going to be conversational. And that's where I'm telling a story about what happened last week. We had a party here at the house for the last debate, you know, we had a bunch of people over and it was just a lot of fun. So that's my conversational voice. I'm just telling you a story. It's conversation. The third one is the coach voice. So you got confidential, conversational. Now we have coach voice. Now your coach voice is where you have the authority to deliver information, the authority to challenge, the authority to teach. That is your coach voice, okay? The fourth one, well, I'd say when it comes to coach voice, I'd say from a preacher's perspective, most of your message is going to be in C number 2, which is conversational, and C number 3, coach. And in coach voice, when you're in C number 3, coach voice, you're going to land most of your words and your phrases down. Don't end them up, because when you end them up, it sounds like upspeak, and that gives you no authority, and people don't really listen to what you have to say. So end your phrases down. You have the authority to speak, right? And for people to listen. And I want them to understand this. So end your phrases down. That's C number 3. A lot of you don't even realize you do this stuff. But once you start realizing the tools that are available to you, you're going to go, wow. You're going to look back and realize that your messages started to connect. I mean, I use cases in point, like, um, for example, Francis Chan. Now, Francis, see, he kind of speaks like this. And then when it gets up like this, and he's going, you need to understand this. And then he goes into the fourth C, which is compelling. Okay. Every preacher has to have a compelling voice, right? When you get to the point where you're really driving the point home, this is where the emotion, the drive, this is where you're convinced that this needs to be heard and understood. Okay. This is like political preacher on a stump. Boom. Okay. That's your compelling voice. All right. And if you don't know where that is, you need to come up with where that is for you. And some people go, well, I'm just not that way. That's not my personality. Wrong answer. Your personality, even though everybody tells you in these personality tests, you know, what's the big one, Rand? The Enneagram. Oh, I'm an Enneagram 1 with the 8 wing and the 18C and the B and the. Listen, all the Enneagram stuff, all it is like it's trying to give you a snapshot of who you are now. Okay. But it's not a snapshot of everything you are. Matter of fact, you are a little bit of every one of those descriptors, just in different amounts. Okay. But it doesn't mean that you can't stretch into some of those other personality traits and actually start to use them to be a better communicator, to be a better person, to be a better relational, just a relational person in everyday life, a better spouse, a better dad. So all those things are available to you. Stretch into them. Don't let them define you. Okay. So that leads me to the compelling voice. If you don't know where that compelling voice is, you need to learn it. If you're a parent, if you're a guy out there and you're going, man, I'm a parent, I know what it is to have a really frank and very firm discussion with my son over something that just happened to him, then that's kind of where your compelling voice lands. How does that look for you? How does that sound for you? Okay. So your 4 C's, it'll change your life, man. You guys, and if there's any women out there too, same thing. You have a little higher voice, but it works the same way. Okay. So for anyone who's a communicator, C number 1, right, is that confidential. Nobody else is listening. It's great for calls to action. C number 1 is like, this is where you go. How about your life? I know that in COVID, you've been dealing with some major challenges. So how about you? Has it been overwhelming for you? That's the voice you're going to go to when you're doing your CTA. And it usually comes out of a point where maybe you were being coach voice, maybe you were being compelling voice. And then the dynamic shift is like, and every time you do that, you have to understand that God will make a way. How about you? What does that mean for you? If you don't use that dynamic in every message, then you're cutting your people short. They're being robbed because you're not giving them the full meaning of the words that you worked so hard for during the week. Okay. Let's go on to the next one. If you can understand that stuff, guys, and put that into practice, I'm telling you, it will transform the way you preach. Now, I've been doing these voice acting classes. I've been teaching in Burbank and Hollywood for several years, and I take classes of 10, and we do voice acting. But one thing that absolutely surprised me was when I did a virtual class this summer, and we had 10 on a Zoom call, and about maybe 20% of them, 2 out of 10, were pastors because they were interested in voice acting. And I've heard from every one of them, this transformed the way I preach a sermon. So there you go. Voice acting. It's for everybody. All right. So let's go on to the next one. This is number 5. CTA, the one big thing. Now, the one big thing, you've heard this in seminary, there's different philosophies about how you deliver your material. And again, I'm not talking material here, as the core subject matter, how you put together your sermons. I'm not talking about devices like an ephora or rule of 3, all that stuff. That's all great. And I hope you embrace all that. That's a whole nother class, but I'm not going to talk about that today. But this whole idea of a CTA, leaving one big thing. When Joe Average and Jane Average, they leave the church building and they're in their car and they go to dinner that day. Maybe they went to the service, or maybe they're at their home and they just turned off the live stream, and they're going to sit and talk about what they just heard over lunch. What's the one thing that they're going to talk about? You should be able to define that for them. So if you've been expositing scripture, for example, what's the one thing God has challenged you to draw out of that so that they walk away with that one big thing? And when you deliver that one thing, make sure it is in that confidential or at least conversational tone, wrapped in that area where you're challenging my friend Jeff to change his life because he's been doing things wrong. And I want you to understand this, Jeff. This will change the way you experience life if you make this change. So whatever that CTA is, right? Don't let it just slip by. Let the pregnant pauses happen. So you finish a line and then just hold your gaze and just let it sit on purpose. Let the thought linger. Because what happens is suddenly everybody goes, wow. And then that thought sticks. These are all techniques that they work, you guys. I love this stuff, man. It started with writing songs about, guys in pickup trucks years ago and just watching audiences, go with me in the stories. I love it. So if you have any questions, obviously, guys, hit me up. I would love to be able to answer your questions. What's another one here?
Hey, Joel.
Yes.
Thank you so much for that. I've got a couple of questions.
Yep.
And I don't know if any have come in. And it's probably, Alan has me on video blackout there because, let me just do this. Okay. He says I can do this video. I want to talk about the RBF, or I call it RSOBF. So how do you deal with that if you're just your natural, I'll be on a Zoom call and somebody will text me on the side, are you mad at something? And I'm just like, I've always had this RSOBF. And then if I try to smile, my kids will say, Dad, you look like an idiot, go back to looking angry. It's better for you. How do you work with that?
Okay. So that's a real common thing that people will go, because they know you and they're not used to seeing you that way. And so it's like, Dad, but there's a certain pleasantness that you put you have to frame yourself into. It's like, if you're having it, what's your wife's name, JD?
Lori.
Okay. So Lori, you're sitting with Lori, right? You're typically, you're going to be engaged with her talking about something that you're just having a conversation. Maybe it's, it's something light. It's something that is, I don't want to say animated, but it's something you're both interested in. Right. And so that face that you have, even when you're talking to Lori, is not the SOB face for you. It's typically something else. It's a little more pleasant and it's engaged. Your eyes typically are a little more animated because you're meeting someone's gaze. Find out what that is for you. And I know it sounds weird, but you have to kind of look in the mirror now and then and go into different attitudes. When I'm teaching voice acting, for example, there's a huge long list of attitudes and emotions, and I have them practice each one of those. What does that look like and sound like for you? And it's not just about the sound, because the sound follows the look, right? So if I'm speaking it and I'm not fully engaged, my voice doesn't get me there. It will if my face is there. So your face has a huge bearing on how people perceive you. And it goes across the board. Anytime a lens is watching you. Um, so here's a good example on when I do the Charles Stanley thing. And I've got my parts all rehearsed and I'm running my lines and the cameras are all, there's two cameras and we're at a lakeside thing. And I know my lines, I've got them down. But at any one point, that guy, he could be rolling camera on me, getting B-roll, right? It's called B-roll. B-roll is stuff that you don't see my lips moving. It's just me, thinking to myself and stuff like that. So when that's happening, I need to be concerned with just how do I present? What are people thinking I'm thinking, right? So if it's thoughts of just I'm in a good spot, I feel confident. I know that, after the election, everything's going to be okay. My face is going to show it. So you have to do a little bit of mirror action where you're just like, how do I look this way? And look back at yourself giving a message. I mean, one of the greatest tools you have is a video camera, videotape, roll back and review what you do. How does it look? How does it sound? The things that you heard me talk about today. Um, how would you analyze your own communication after hearing that? So you'll find it. You just have to find it. That's why I say find your friendly. If I'm meeting a stranger, how do I normally present myself as a stranger? I don't know their name. Typically, I'm giving them a little smile and I'm engaged. Hey, I care about you, right? My face says it. I hope that gives you a little help, JD. You're a challenge, man. You're a challenge.
No, I am a challenge. That's why wearing a mask works really well for me.
So true. So true, man. It's like everybody's got a cop out now. You can't tell what the heck they're thinking, right? Oh, it's so funny.
Is compelling yelling?
Okay, so compelling is going to be different for everybody, but compelling is typically not yelling unless you're really trying to make a point. For most people, though, it's not going to be, but it's going to be strong. It's going to be you're calling them to you know something very important, and it could be it may not be life and death, but it could be life changing or not. So you want them to really get it, and I just encourage people. If you don't practice your talks and you don't practice this stuff, you're never going to get it. You got to practice it. Put your camera on, put your phone up, prop it on a little tripod or at your desk, but stand up and deliver your message and watch back and to see how well you do. It really will help you tremendously. Just self evaluation, self awareness. So
Good. It's so painful to do.
it is so painful. It is. It's so painful.
Hey, I have one more question for you. Before we get to that, how do people contact you if they want more coaching, if they want to join your classes?
Oh yeah. So if you want to go here to empoweryourplatform.com, if what I talked with you today about is interesting to you, there's a free download there, and I just made it. It's empoweryourplatform.com/TM. And there's a PDF. You can just plug in your email. Got to trade your email for it, but it gives you a full 2-page evaluation about the 5 points we talked about today. And that way you can kind of refer to it and you don't have to watch this thing back every time, but that might help you. The other thing is there's a lot of stuff there. I've been doing online training now for voice acting. We were doing a thing called the sharpening, which is really interesting. It's for churches, their teaching staff, for anyone under 10. I only do 10 or less. And I have everyone prepare according to a framework, prepare an 8-minute talk. And then we get together on an afternoon and everybody delivers their talk for the small group. And then we break it down. So it's called the sharpening, and it is really, really fun. I've done a couple of them and then COVID hit, but I was amazed at just the response of people. It's a lot of fun. So if that's interesting to you too, there's information there for you. Yeah, and you just hit me up directly. My email.
Empoweryourplatform.com.
Yep. Empoweryourplatform.com.
Here's my last question for you. Because there's a couple of questions in the queue, but I can't see them. So I'm going to just end with this. What's your CTA for us?
Okay. My CTA for you is this. Don't be concerned about what people think of you. Okay. Bottom line is it's way more important than mission is greater than me. When I say mission, I mean mission in all caps. Whatever God has given you for your mission, right? Mission, greater sign, me is lower caps. That should define and overarch everything that you do. That's your CTA.
Great, great. Hey, thanks so much, Joel, for being here. Joel's been a big help to me. He's done some coaching on the side for me. I just highly recommend you contacting him. We really appreciate your time, and this stuff's been great. It's just wonderful. After talking to you last time, I got a new chair, so I'm sitting up straight a little bit. I got a ring light, but that's as bright as I can get.
That's all right, man. It's way better than the shaded JD, you know, the RSOB face that I saw last time. It was good, man. That's great.
Hey, next Tuesday at 1 o'clock, our webinars on life cycles. Here's the panel. It's Dr. Bob Orr, Dr. Chip Arn, Apostle Henry Alexander, Ivan Vialta, and Kirk Mackey will be leading that. And then in 2 weeks, we'll have Glenn Gunderson and Tom Mercer. Anything we can do for you at TM, that's why we're here. Any way we can help you, Joel, anything we can do for you, please let us know. Thanks, everybody, for joining today. It's less than an hour on this. Go and have fun with the election tonight.
Yes, yes. Hey, one more thing, JD.
Go ahead.
Listen, one more thing. You guys, I respect TM so much, man. Just, you know, one time I called Willie up. I said, Willie, I've got a friend who's interested in this stuff. And, you know, Willie set his time aside and he went and had lunch with me and with my friend. And I mean, everyone at TM, you know, Judson Baptist, I think at Keith Whitehouse, and all the different people that have been involved in TM. You guys, I just love your hearts for the Lord and for ministry and for bringing people to Jesus. So God bless each one of you. What a privilege.
Thanks so much, Joel. And God bless you. Thanks for all you do. Keep up the good work. And we'll be talking to you.
Okay. Thanks, JD. Thanks, everyone. All right.